Hey guys, Skellington80 here. So, we are back for another chapter of Stalker. I hope you're excited, because I certainly am. So, without further ado, let's get started. Meanwhile, in the forest. Rockabye baby in the treetops. Who put you up there? Let's call the cops. The cops are all zombies, and so is the town. You're safer up there. We won't get you down. I was probably supposed to sing that, but just like the Ring Around the Rosie one, I don't really feel like singing today, so that's what you get. I'm sorry. So, now with that out of the way, we have Chapter 7, Bad Apple. On further thought, perhaps I should have stayed and examined what exactly was going on with that empty sack and that unmoving huntsman. The Queen had been very specific about how he was supposed to leave the sack with Snow White in the middle of a sunny meadow, because she's a vampire and vampires are killed by the sun and all that. But there it was in the middle of the deepest, darkest woods. Maybe we should go back and take a look. Nah, I'm sure everything's totally fine. Let's go visit this old woman who lives in a shoe. All her kids smell like dirty socks. She doesn't feed them much, and she whips them before bed. It's hilarious. You're gonna love it. No, you want to go into the deepest, darkest woods, but nothing good ever happens there. Fine, don't say I didn't warn you. On this day, in the deepest, darkest part of the woods, 7 dwarves were trudging home. Their cloaks were pulled tightly over their faces, and they squinted against what few dim rays of sunlight managed to fight their way through the thick cover of the trees. The forest here was old, gnarled and knotted, mossed and rotted. It smelled like decay. Even the birds singing in the trees were off-key, their tweeting more like funeral dirges than cheerful birdsong. Even though it was daytime, the cold quite never left. On the brightest summer afternoon, the air down here was damp and chill, and it seemed to tug with clammy fingers. Are you really sure you want to be here? I know a lot of other stories. We can visit them instead. Snow White threw open the windows of the 7 dwarfs' cottage, singing her own funeral tune with all the joy her little unbeating heart could contain. Oh my, I had forgotten how beautiful she was, how sweet and good, how much I loved staring into her black, black eyes. I don't want to be anywhere else but here. Snow White was happy. Now that she wasn't trapped in that wretched castle, she could do as she pleased. First, she had enjoyed a nice meal with that big, stupid huntsman. And by that, I mean she drank his blood. Although you probably could have guessed that. Then she had found 7 little dwarfs who simply loved her to death. It had been so long since anyone had adored her. Her stepmother certainly hadn't, probably on account of the whole evil vampire thing. That horrible woman had never done anything to make Snow White happy, and now she had 7 little friends who lived to do whatever she asked of them. It was perfect. For now. Soon, though, Snow White would move on, because she was so happy and she made the 7 dwarfs so happy, she needed to spread that happiness to the next village, and the next, and the next. But even that would not be enough. She would only be truly happy when every single person in the kingdom, and then the world, knew and loved her. She licked her blood-red lips. Oh yes, everyone would love her. Don't you love her? Yes, you do. Look deep into those bottomless black eyes. Snow White will make everyone love her, and when they love her, they'll all be happy. Thank you, Snow White, for being so generous. Her mesmerizing voice had called the 7 dwarfs back. She smiled, showing each tiny, sharp tooth. Good afternoon, she trilled happily. How are my favorite dwarfs? The first dwarf took off his hood. He was ashen and pale, with dark circles under his eyes. Actually, he said, his voice gravelly and tortured, we're not dwarves, remember? We're just very hirsute children. Hirsute is a fun word. It means covered in excessive hair. An easy way to remember that is if you look like you are wearing a hairsuit, you are very hirsute. There is nothing wrong with being hirsute. It makes you softer and warmer than everyone else. Unfortunately, for these 7 boys, it also made Snow White confuse them for dwarves. Snow White hummed, nodding. Yes, yes, of course, my little dwarves. Now come in, it's time to eat. That's odd. There was nothing on the table or the stove. No delicious sense of food filled the air. Dang it. Snow White... Okay, let's start again. I accidentally read... or the stove again. That's odd. There was nothing on the table or the stove. No delicious sense of food filled the air. Snow White tied a cloth napkin around her neck and smiled as the hirsute boys filed in one by one. Then she licked her lips again and closed the door. Not too far from where we left the sounds of Snow White gleefully slurping her dinner, the Queen found something troubling. This was not the Queen who was currently sitting on the burned rubble heap of her former castle. That Queen would no sooner go searching in the darkest part of the forest than she would brush her own teeth without a servant's help, which is why she also had a serious toothache. No, this Queen was the Queen who married the King, who had been married to the Queen who had died, who had then died himself, but not before marrying this Queen. Royal marriage is complicated. This was the Queen who had sent the huntsman into the forest with Snow White, the Queen who had tried to end Snow White's precious little life when Snow White had become fairest in all the land. That Queen, she looks very familiar. She and the stepmother could be the same person. Wait, oh no wonder why she's exhausted. No wonder she's so exhausted. I read that wrong, I'm sorry. She sighed as she picked up the empty sack empty snack Snow White had been in. This was not the middle of a sunny meadow. She looked around, and I held my breath, waiting for her to find the huntsman where we had seen him lying motionless. But there was nothing there. Phew, that was a relief. "Hello," the huntsman said from behind her. "Ah!" I screamed. Fortunately, the Queen was more used to terrifying things than I am. She was, after all, the stepmother of Snow White, among many others. She calmly turned around. The huntsman loomed in the shadows behind a tree, and his eyes seemed to shine red in the midst of his unnaturally pale face. The 2 red dots on the side of his neck matched his eyes perfectly. "There you are," said the Queen. "I take it you did not follow my instructions." "I'm thirsty," said the huntsman. He ran his tongue along his teeth as he stared at the Queen's long, graceful throat. "Of course you are," the Queen smiled. "Where is Snow White?" "She said I'm not supposed to tell you." "Of course not. You absolutely shouldn't tell me she went back to the castle and is living in the village." The huntsman frowned. "No, I'm not supposed to tell you that she's in the darkest part of the woods, living in a cottage with 7 hirsute children." "Right," the Queen said. "Of course. Is there anything else you weren't supposed to do?" The huntsman frowned, scratching his chin with his dirty fingernails. I wasn't supposed to give you any warning before I bit you." His face fell. "I messed it up, didn't I? She was so specific, and I don't want to disappoint her. Beautiful Snow White. Good Snow White. Sweet Snow White." "Don't worry, we don't have to tell her. I have an idea. I'll go stand in the middle of that meadow, the sunny one you were supposed to leave her in, and you can sneak up behind me there." Sneak. "That way you'll be doing exactly what she told you to do." The huntsman smiled, showing his newly pointed teeth. "Gee, you'd do that for me?" "It's the least I can do to repay you for all your work." The Queen stalked back through the trees to the meadow. She stood in the middle, and the brilliant sunshine was like a blanket around her. Then, hearing a surprised shriek and a poof sound, the Queen turned around. She lifted her skirts and stepped over the huntsman-sized pile of ash on the edge of the meadow. Out of her bag she'd pulled a cloak and some makeup. She drew some lines on her face and attached a false nose. She drank lemon juice so her voice was tight and scratchy. If you hadn't seen her do it, you would have never known that beneath that hooded cloak and weird makeup was the Queen herself. Leaning heavily on a long sturdy stick, she hobbled through the trees. "Apples!" she called. "Apples for sale!" Deep in the darkest part of the forest, she found one of the poor hirsute little boys leaning against a tree. His eyes were dull, his lips pale. He was not yet fairer than she was, though. "Hello, little boy," she said. "You don't think I'm a dwarf?" the boy asked. "I think you grow a very fine beard for such a young child. You should be proud. Tell me, would anyone around here like to buy some fresh fruit?" He shook his head sadly, but then his eyebrows drew low in thought. "Maybe," he whispered. "Maybe if we found her the right food." The Queen. "Just her?" "Her?" the Queen asked. I don't know why I read that in the wrong order. I'm sorry. "Come on," the hirsute boy said. He scrambled ahead of her, stumbling and tripping. He had to stop and rest a lot because of that. The Queen was impatient, but she was pretending to be an old woman, so she couldn't very well tell him to go faster. Finally, they drew close to a quaint cottage. No smoke rose from the chimney. "Don't you get cold?" the Queen asked. "You should light a fire." "Oh, no!" he cried. "No fires allowed." He pushed her toward the cottage. "See if you can get her to eat something. Anything but—" He put a hand over the side of his neck and swallowed hard. "Why don't you run away?" the Queen said, crouching down to look him in the eyes. For a moment she thought he would listen to her. Then his eyes went fuzzy again, like a television switched to the wrong channel. Nothing but static. "I would miss her so much," he said. "Beautiful Snow White. Sweet Snow White. Good Snow White. I know," she said, sighing. The Queen stood up, straightening her cloak and bending her back. "A stepmother's gotta do what a stepmother's gotta do," she muttered. "In other words, what literally no one else is willing to." She knocked her walking stick against the door, and it slowly creaked open. "Yes?" Snow White said. "I should be smart like the Queen and avoid looking directly into her eyes." The Queen reached into her bag and withdrew the gleaming apple. It shone bright red. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk today, I'm sorry. She held it out to her. "Apple, my dear?" Snow White hissed, flinching away. "No, never!" Darn, I thought that was going to work. The Queen dropped the apple back into her bag. She pulled out a banana. "Banana?" She was used to picky stepchildren. Snow White made retching noises. "Brussels sprout? Does anyone actually like those?" "Me, I do." The Queen shrugged, dropping it back in her bag. It was worth a shot. "Pea? No, thank you. I just went to the bathroom." Biting back a growl of frustration, the Queen pulled out one final item. Her last chance. "How about a blood orange?" If you were looking into Snow White's eyes, you would have seen the black there gleam with a reddish, hungry light. "Did you say blood?" The Queen smiled. "Go on, try it. They're very juicy." Snow White snatched the blood orange away. She peeled it in a frenzy, then opened her mouth and sank her fangs into it. Her black eyes went wide before rolling back into her head. She collapsed, unmoving and unbreathing. She should have led with that one. The Queen stared down sadly. The 7 hirsute children gathered around her, crying. They wiped their eyes with their beards. "She was so beautiful," they cried, "and so good and so sweet." "Yes, I know." The Queen sighed. "We should bury her," one of the boys said. "But then we would never get to see her again." "I know," the tallest of the hirsute boys said. "I have a glass coffin." Everyone paused. "Why do you have a glass coffin?" the Queen asked. "I collect them. You know how some people collect baseball cards or rocks shaped like hearts? I collect glass coffins." The Queen frowned. "Well, at least your hobby isn't arson. I suppose that—" But then she heard a strange rumbling. Looking up through a break in the trees, she saw far in the distance a very tall stalk going straight up into the clouds, and a very tiny figure, a suspiciously jack-shaped figure, scrambling down it. She looked the other direction, where black smoke was billowing up into the sky. It practically spelled out Cinderella. No, it actually spelled out Cinderella. She and her husband were really good with fire. The Queen looked down at Snow White. "Glass coffin, you say? Sounds good. Put her inside and take her into the middle of the sunniest meadow you can find." The 7 hirsute children nodded, sniffling and sobbing. The Queen muttered, pointing back between the beanstalk and the smoke. "1 stepchild, 2 stepchild, 3 stepchild, 4. Which rotten stepchild needs me more?" Sighing, she went off in the direction of the smoke. The 7 hirsute children slowly dragged the glass coffin toward the meadow, but it was hard work, and they were only children, regardless of how much facial hair they had. By the time they got the coffin to the meadow, it was twilight. Everything was soft and purple and decidedly not sunny. "Hello," a cheerful voice called out. The 7 hirsute children stopped laying flowers on Snow White's coffin. Approaching them was a nice-looking young man atop a horse who had no eyebrows. The young man, not the horse. The horse didn't have eyebrows because she was a horse. The young man, however, didn't have eyebrows because he didn't understand basic fire safety. A girl rode with her arms snug around his waist. Or wrapped snugly around his waist, that's what they should have said. They were both covered in soot and ashes and smelled like smoke. "What happened here?" he said, climbing off the horse and peering into the coffin. "She's beautiful." "And sweet and good," the hirsute children said, sobbing. One of them looked up hopefully. "Would you like to kiss her?" Wow. Well, see, I don't usually go around kissing dead girls in coffins. That's a bit odd. Also, I'm fairly sure it's against the law. Besides, I'm married." He smiled lovingly up at Cinderella, and she blew him a kiss. "But she isn't dead," one of the children said. "She isn't breathing," Prince Charming retorted. "Oh, she never breathes." "Have you checked her pulse?" the prince asked. The children shook their heads. They were only kids. They didn't understand anything about CPR. The prince pushed the lid off the glass coffin, lifting Snow White's wrist. "I don't feel anything." "Try her neck," Cinderella offered helpfully. The prince couldn't quite reach, so he gently lifted Snow White's head. The piece of blood orange popped right out of her mouth. Her eyes fluttered open, and luckily for him, Prince Charming was looking at her neck, not her eyes. Believe it or not, that's actually how it happens in the original story. The poisonous apple somehow gets dislodged from her throat, and she just comes back to life. I know, truth is stranger than fiction. I mean, the truth, how the story actually went, is stranger than fiction, the way Disney rewrote it, and everyone seems to accept it. I don't know. Just forget I said anything. The hirsute children shoved him out of the way. "Snow White!" they shouted. "Snow White, you're alive!" "Not exactly," she said. She jumped out of the coffin, grabbing the first child and draining him of what little remained of his blood. "Oh no," the prince said. But even as he watched, the children's eyes went from glassy and dead to glowing and red. "Oh no." Prince Charming backed up, as one by one the 7 hirsute children were drained. They turned towards him, hissing and baring their teeth. One ran forward, but he tripped on his long beard. Cinderella grabbed Prince Charming's hand and pulled him up onto the horse. Behind them were 7 hirsute children and one beautiful, sweet, good girl chasing them. And they all lived happily ever after. Wait, no, sorry, wrong ending. Somehow I don't think this one has a happy ending. Let's jump to the next instead. Okay, and with that, we are done with today's story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're excited for tomorrow's story. We are almost at the end of the book because there are 9 chapters, 10 if you count the prologue. But with that being said, happy Halloween, like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you next time. Bye!